Well, this is the first of my weekly Facebook Live sessions. And what happened today or tonight is, well, that's big. And America chose a new president, and people around the world, Americans, I can see on Facebook, they are very much surprised. And some of them, there's like apocalyptic versions of future, what will happen with all of us. And it sounds like people really feel that everything, it will affect everything, the choice of the president. And it feels like there's no personal responsibility anymore. And I see it the same thing with how people react on different kinds of pills that is coming from the industry, that there's more hope for cancer, there's more hope for diabetes and different kind of lifestyle disease. And that's the only hope. Very often I see that the pills are the people's only hope. And why I decided to talk about personal responsibility today, because I see it as the greatest single problem we have in our society. I live in Denmark, and in Denmark is, well, many people see Denmark, look at Denmark as one of the most, thank you, Pilar, one of the most secured societies, where if you go down, you know, could be mentally, you are depressed, or you go down with sickness, the state will take over. And I'm coming from Russia, where the system, for 30 years ago, when I came back to Denmark, was a bit different than now. But now it's more and more, you cannot rely on government. You cannot really rely on the system. And in a way, that's a good thing. Hi, Steve. Nice to see you here online, or to see that you are commenting. So what's happening is that people forget about personal responsibility. In Russia, people start to wake up now and see that if they don't do something for themselves, well, they will not be able, they don't have so many chances maybe to survive. And in a way, what we experienced tonight, all of, you know, people thought that Hillary will win yesterday, and everything changed drastically during the night. And when we wake up here in Europe, we see that Americans, many of my friends on Facebook, for example, that's like tragic. They look at it as tragic. But what my thought is, actually, that maybe we should look at this, and we should a little bit different, and we should learn something from this. What happened? I wrote a little Facebook article this morning, and what I wrote is, if I can allow to quote myself. So, because I saw one of my friends in England, he was writing that the global consciousness is facilitating collapse, and that's like an apocalyptic vision, right? But I don't think so. So what I wrote, that that's what happens when the energy balance has been wrong for a long time, and years of living with suboptimal status quo. And suboptimal, that is status quo where the real inspiration, the real development, the roots of positive growth are not really existing. So these years of living with suboptimal status quo in a world system with corrupted politicians that's starting wars towards their own people, against each other, and actually a lot of it is greed. It's greed, it's money. And that has resulted in this kind of, you can call it revolution, you can call it evolution. It actually doesn't matter. But what my point is, the easiest parallel is to draw with how our own body reacts in the situation like this, suboptimal status quo for too many years. So that's exactly the same thing that happens. So in our own body, years of living with suboptimal status quo results in the outburst in the chronic disease. And you see, I'm drawing maybe a little parallel here to what happens in United States. And you know, every time people get cancer, they say, suddenly it happened. I didn't know that it would happen to me. I've been living my normal life and it just bang, it's happened. But the truth is that cancer cells, they accumulate for many, many years, especially in suboptimal environments with too much sugar, lots of toxins that are not drained out for the body. They accumulate, and it takes from 10 to 25 years. And suddenly, bang, suddenly you get cancer. So, so cancer is actually not a disease. It's a metabolic survival mechanism the body cells use to avoid death. In the situation, there's a little excursus now into the physiology, you know, because how the normal cells live, they breathe. Actually, what we're talking about breathing, it's actually a cellular mechanism. It's not, when we say breathing, we normally think about the nose, the lungs, the blood. If we really go wild and people say, okay, breathe big, breathe bigger, take bigger breaths, deeper breaths, and then you will get a lot of oxygen in the blood. What they don't understand actually, that the breathing is a cellular mechanism. It's a point-to-point from the air outside, inside the body. And it's actually the cell is a recipient of the molecules of oxygen. And when when it's suboptimal, and that's the cancer cell evolves. And the cancer cell evolves where the cellular breathing is impaired. And what the cell does, it starts changing. It starts mutating many cells in order to survive. And actually, what helps, they stop normal breathing that doesn't work in this stressful environment, and stress can be a lot of different things. Again, can be a parallel to the American, what happened in the U.S. Today or tonight. In this stressful environment, in toxic environment, the cell shifts into kind of a prehistoric way of getting the energy. It starts getting the energy from most of the energy from sugar, from fermentation of sugar. And sugar is a part of this stressful environment because it's not normal for our breed, for our, for the mammals like us. We call Homo sapiens sapiens. That's our DNA, which is about 30,000 years old, the latest breed of us. And that's who we are. We are not really, it's not good for our body to function in the toxic environment with very, very high levels of sugar. So what we see, that a lot of cells start mutating, and what eventually turns into cancer. And that's the same mechanism, actually. The cells go into kind of a prehistoric simple survival mode using sugar fermentation. So it's actually the same mechanism like the simplest forms of life used in the early days on this planet. And if we shift to, if we shift to politics, so you can call it fear, you can call it people voted from fear, people voted from protest, but what is really is, I think, I don't think that we have to label it global consciousness is facing or facilitating collapse. I really don't think so. What I think is that that's a sign of general need for personal responsibility. We have to take personal responsibility, and this responsibility has to take over, because when the system fails, there have to be some kind of alternative. And if there's no alternative, there's a decline, inevitable decline. And who wants decline? Who wants decline in the country, the biggest country in the world? Well, this is a country that has inspired many, country that has played, well, there's a lot of positive, negative things you can always say about the countries, about the politicians, because no one politician is completely clear. In order to evolve in politics, you have to be very, very flexible. And sometimes flexibility, it's a synonym of worse things, actually, to be flexible. It can be a synonym of just in the bordering to crime. So what we need is to take a personal responsibility. So the strategy in politics for us, not politicians, but for us human beings that are, well, we are very much, many of us very much upset. Some people are that voted for Trump. They may maybe wake up this morning and they think, and what now? So I voted of protest, I voted of fear. So what now? So that's a very, very interesting question. But what I think we have to have the strategy here for us all the same as with cancer. And that's what I think will really work. And it's to take personal responsibility and then see what happens. Because when we are taking personal responsibility, then we are, when we are taking personal responsibility, we are taking actually many different aspects of our environment, of our surroundings into consideration. Because one of my friends, and she got cancer yesterday. She got this message that about the spread, about the metastatic spread, and what the hospital doctor said. Now, they are not big. There's a spread in the lymph nodes, but they're not big. What we do, we wait and see. And you see, to wait and see, there's nothing to do with taking personal responsibility. When you wait and see, and you have cancer, you can have whatever, you can have diabetes or asthma and everything. If you don't take personal responsibility, it will just be a status quo, would you think? But you have to remember, with our health, there's no status quo. There's two possibilities. Either is health or decline, health or illness. There's nothing in the middle. If you don't take personal responsibility for your health, nobody will do it for you. It will always remain at the level of working with not the cause, not the roots, but always it will be. You will always be a kind of a victim. It will always be the half solutions. You see, and what we are doing, the most of us, in the path of our health, we are not taking personal responsibility. We rely on somebody will patch us, repair us when the bad things happen to us, like cancer or some other lifestyle disease. And when somebody will start patching us or repairing us, it will be like repairing the cause, repairing the symptom and not the cause. And that's what the problem is with not taking responsibility. If you are not taking responsibility for your life, for your health, you will always be on the path of patching the symptoms. It be, radiation, chemotherapy, different kind of pills. Some people rely on vitamins and things like that, thinking that it will actually let them eat. That is something called SAD, and SAD is Standard American Diet, and this is SAD, is actually the original abbreviation for. So when you're eating a Standard American Diet, you need vitamins, you think. The problem is all of those vitamins you digest, most of them, they coming out again directly in the drain. You excrete them because they are not bioavailable. They cannot be digested because all of this shit you are getting into your mouth. And part of it, it's chemical. It's called chelation. And chelation, that's some organism that we have in the crops in order to make them grow and, have a big harvest, to be able to grow as much as possible and to earn as much possible money for the crops. They put these chelators, and that's actually that kills the microorganisms. And we have bigger crops and we have a lot more harvest in volume. The problem is when we get get these things into our system, they will prevent other minerals and vitamins and antioxidants to actually get into the cells. It's called chelation. So you see, and there's a lot of aspects like that. And the thing is that it takes knowledge to know this in order to be aware and to have this switch. Do I take responsibility? Do I give the responsibility off to some others, to doctors, and in order to let this switch to work properly, the first thing we need to have, that's awareness. And that's awareness. It's a global word. It's a very, very big word. That's awareness about what's actually happening. So we have to be able to listen to different sources of information. And that's how the knowledge start to leak into our body, the knowledge. And then how we become wiser. And then when we become wiser, we have more knowledge. We are much more stable in securing that this shift will always go into the side, not giving up responsibility, but taking responsibility. Because taking responsibility, it takes guts. It takes power of will. It takes knowledge. But actually, about knowledge, what most people think that is most crucial thing, knowledge. And that's how our Western world works, functions actually. We are totally obsessed with knowledge. And many people know a lot, but they can not use this knowledge. Because the knowledge is, you will need knowledge to make the change. But what we really need to make the change, that's to take responsibility. Because unless you take responsibility, you will not be able to implement this knowledge into your life and to make the difference. And what I think, and here we have a beautiful correlation with what happens with politics. We tend to rely on politics. We tend to we choose our politicians, but we forget that the politicians' word during the campaign, while the polls are working and counting, are one thing, and some completely other is the words of a politician after the campaign, after the politician had won and is ruling the country. It could be something totally different. So to rely on politicians, that's the fallacy. That's one of the biggest fallacies, I think. So how we can make the change, real change in our world? That's to take responsibility for our own health, for our own path, to try to build up the real strong process in our own life, and to have experience out of that. And this experience then we can use to inspire and to empower people around us. And that is the only way. That's how also to grow local economy, that's something to do for local governments to enable many possibilities for the small businesses to grow in the situation where there's a lot of international giants, the monopolies, that are not interested in that process. That's also responsibility for the local environment. But how we can influence all of this? It starts with us. Don't rely on politicians. Rely on yourself and live in your environment, be it Russia with corrupt politicians of unheard and unseen dimensions, be it Denmark with there's a lot of different research on economy and social research that's saying that Denmark is one of the least corrupted countries. But still, what politicians are saying during the campaign, their campaign, while polls are ticking, and after the campaign, is very, very different things here too. So the grass will always be greener on the other pastures, on the other side of Atlantic, or in the other country, or on the other street, or, well, I can go on and on. So what we can change, again, I'm saying, we have to work with the root causes. Don't treat symptoms. It will always lead to decline. Okay? And that's what is interesting about what we are doing with health in my programs and with my partners. We're trying to promote the way of thinking about health as an integrative concept, not thinking about only breathing or only physical movement or only nutrition or only immunity or only mental way, which is corrupted actually. That's right, Steve. Academics. I don't know who to blame here, but I think mostly we have to blame ourselves, because we have the possibility to choose. In every situation, in here in the article I wrote, actually for my blog today, also, I wrote about the guy whose name was Viktor Frankl. And Viktor Frankl, he's a survivor, Holocaust survivor. He actually wrote a book about psychology of extreme stress, psychology of Holocaust, of prisoners of Holocaust who, wannabe survivors. So he got, he lived long life. He survived Holocaust. He survived the concentration camp. And he actually, the way of his survival, it was by inspiring other people, giving away of his own power of will. That's how he survived. He survived, helping people every single day in a very, very hard situation of a concentration camp. And I'm not trying to make a parallel with modern living anywhere in the world with concentration camp, but I just want to say that that's an extreme example of taking responsibility, because you see, the most people they just in these extreme survivment in extreme environments, they tend to say, okay, it's enough, I cannot do it anymore. I just die. I cannot do it anymore. But it's a matter of taking, that's a choice. That's also what about Viktor Frankl is talking about. He made a choice. He made a very, very strong choice. And to make this choice in the situation when where you are impaired so much with possibilities, it takes guts. Not everybody can do it, but I think we can train ourselves to come closer to this power of will, and that's what we can do if we take responsibility for our own health. So it has to be an integral approach. Integral approach means that we have to really empower ourselves with different with the different aspects of our path, of every problem. You know, when we're talking about health, and not be specialists, and not only rely on specialists. When many people rely, you know, only on diet, many people rely on breathing, many people rely on training physical resilience. Many people do some detoxes, you know, to enable immunity. Many people work with psychologists like years and years and years. But what my point is, in order to make a real stable change, by being aware, by having information, by turning it into knowledge, by turning knowledge into implementing it in the process, the only possibility is to take responsibility in your own hands. Because your environment will always tell you, this is what you're doing, this is crazy, it doesn't fit the way society, we here in the society used to do it. This is strange. This is wrong. So it takes really guts to do it. So you have to connect all your inspirations and choose your own path of change. Now I've talked for almost half an hour, and well, I hope I inspired you a little bit. I want to tell you that it's going to be in English every week from now on Facebook Live at 1 o'clock Copenhagen time on Wednesdays, and 1 o'clock Copenhagen time on Thursdays in Danish. So English on Wednesdays and Danish on Thursdays. 1 o'clock CET, Copenhagen time. And if you want to subscribe on this, you know, free question and answers, and were no questions yet. They are yet to come. I think they are coming now. So subscribe on my Facebook page that is called Questions and Answers with Misha, Q&A with Misha. Like it, and you will get a notification where I'm going live, so you will not miss my next talk. If you have any questions, or just inspirations, or just some aspects you would like to talk about on the next talk, please write to me right now in the comments, and maybe I can answer some of them right now. So anyway, you can go there and to question and answers with Misha. You can also ask questions directly there, so I will take them, all the questions that you will ask. And remember, there's a replay. You can then, Jana, hi, I'm just closing now. And if you have any comments, so you can write in this group, question and answers with Misha on Facebook, and I will take it up next time I am online. Or maybe I just make a Facebook Live again. And then you will get notification, direct notification from your Facebook. So if you have any questions, guys, please ask me now. Hi, Anna. Thank you, my dear. And you see, you never know what happens next. Like I got up this morning, it was a lot of snow outside. It was black, it was snow, it was freezing. Now it's raining and there's no snow. You know, you cannot count with politicians, neither you can count on weather. Those two things, because they are this tendency, you know, to shift like radically. So, yes, that was the inspiration. I hope it was an inspiration of the day. But please give me your comments, and I really hope you will have a beautiful, beautiful day. Misha Sakharov here.